or the DHS or whatever works with the country that we sent the falsely deported man to, and we work to bring them back. That is what normally happens. They are pretending they can't do that because the real position of the Trump administration is that they should be able to deport anyone for any reason with no due process, and then once they've done it, sorry, no takesies backsies. What do you think about the theory that he's dead and that's why they can't get him back? Nope, definitely not true. They know he's not dead and they don't want him back because him coming back would mean that the US reporters get to access him, and then he gets to go on a news run talking about how he was tortured, probably raped, humiliated in this gulag for nothing. If he is freed, he also gets to start suing people in the Trump administration, which he should do if he ever gets free, which he might not. But I don't think he's dead. It would be pretty stupid of Bukele to allow the American prisoners sent to El Salvador to die. That could open up a lot of, problems for him in the future. Unless he's been instructed to kill them, in which case it's no longer a gulag, it's a death camp. But if that's happening, we don't know yet. We'll see. Anyway, isn't this crazy? For her to... they have already admitted that him being sent to El Salvador was an administrative mistake. So for a DHS rep to be like, oh, actually, it's because he checks notes. He human trafficked or something. That's Jesus Christ, man. They'll just say anything. They'll contradict themselves at a moment's notice. They don't care. So I'm really interested in seeing where this case goes because the judge presiding over it, Paula Zinnes, is already mulling directing accusations of bad faith against the Trump administration, which could, potentially escalate very rapidly. So far, no judge acting against the Trump administration has ruled against them in a way that would compel arrest, saying you're acting in contempt of the court, or whatever, we need to send marshals to you, you're under arrest. That hasn't happened yet. Yeah, so far it's all been compliance shit. But man, when it starts getting to contempt, that's when we really reach the test. Because for a fact, right now, they're talking about what to do about this judge. Because there is no way the Trump administration is oh yeah, we'll destroy the country, send people to a foreign gulag, deport people, free, suspend due process, and they're not talking about dealing with judges who step against the administration. They've been talking about judicial overreach for a long time. That's not new, but the law remains the law. What are they going to do about it? They gonna just ignore it? Are they going to come up with bullshit charges against the judge? They're going to try to deport the judge? They're going to arrest the judge? What are they going to do? Is the judge going to be disappeared or have an accident? Again, look, the White House has already acknowledged that the deportation of this man was an administrative error. And in spite of that,
it's unbelievable.
Reps from the executive branch are reconstructing false accusations. Government lawyers say they have no control over Obrego Garcia and no authority to arrange for his return any more than they would have the power to follow a court order commanding them to effectuate the end of the war in Ukraine or a return of the hostages from Gaza. Remarkable. Getting the prisoner that we deported falsely over to El Salvador in a prison that we literally paid El Salvador to take him. We literally are working with Bukele to host these prisoners in an off-country camp, in a black site, essentially. That would be like us ending a war. This is the kind of shit that leads to rulings in bad faith. It's not just this one either. Remember Boasberg? The one who ordered the plane that was taking migrants down to El Salvador to be turned around, and then the Trump administration refused to follow his order, and then since he's been demanding information from the Trump administration on whether or not they directly refused his order, and they keep denying him over and over and over. This one's getting up too. It's getting a little spooky. U.S. District Judge James Jeb Boasberg in Washington pressed a Justice Department lawyer to explain the government's actions in a high-stakes court hearing to determine whether the administration ignored his orders to turn around planes that were carrying deportees to El Salvador. The judge said he could issue a ruling as soon as next week on whether there are grounds to find anyone in contempt of court for defying the court order. If I was Boasberg, by the way, I know I've said this before, but I'd be like issuing these rulings from like a series of unmarked cars traveling across the country, being abandoned, and then switching to another car, like a network of like sympathetic mercenaries escorting me from place to place. I'd be issuing these rulings from the moon, basically. We are getting really, really, really close to like a breaking point. The case has become a flashpoint in a battle between the judiciary and the Trump administration amid mounting White House frustrations over court orders blocking key parts of the president's sweeping agenda. Trump has called for the judge's impeachment, while the Justice Department has argued the judge is overstepping his authority. This is objectively incorrect. I don't feel the need to argue against this, obviously, right? Any more so than I would feel the need to argue that like some specific ruling from Adolf Hitler's government would have been incorrect on the grounds that Jews did not, in fact, like poison the water supply or lead to a poor crop ruling or cause the rain to fall on the day of Hitler's inauguration. It's just factually incorrect. Uves, you're annoying me because you keep adding me, but I will acknowledge that you have, there is a point that you're making that is worth being made. There is an incentive for federal judges to not rule directly against the government in cases like this, because if they don't rule in favor of the government, if they don't drop it, essentially, you run into the real question being like, the president saying, what are you going to do about it? Because that is the line right there between the DOJ being annoyed and sending lawyers and like an actual standoff with like guns and stuff. Because once you start issuing or finding people in contempt of court, issuing court orders, accusing people of defying your ruling, stuff like that, then you're getting into the and there's an incentive for him not to do that because, and it's possible, I don't want to discount this, right? But it's possible that you could get more done by partially ruling against the Trump administration than by forcing their hand. It's like when you corner a wounded animal, right? If you put the federal government in a position where the only way to respond to Judge Boasberg is to just ignore him and disappear him, then they might do it. Right? Whereas if you give the Trump administration a bunch of weaker outs where they have to keep conceding fault and conceding fault and conceding fault, even if they're not actually held to account properly, maybe you avoid the worst case scenario. Maybe you avoid pushing him into a corner where he feels the need to do that. Again, if I was Boasberg, I'd be offering these rulings from like the surface of the moon. I'd be a little nervous. This doesn't have anything to do with the Civil War. This would be more about like, I guess the artifice of legality. That would be the end of the judiciary, essentially, the federal judiciary. It would be an end to fake half-assed proceduralism and the beginning of essentially martial law. Like the ultimate endpoint of the unitary executive theory. You're no longer like pretending to abide by these pre-existing systems. You're now just openly acknowledging like, well, no, we are supreme above the law. We are above the land. Now, functionally, by the way, we are already in that position, right? But there's a big difference between a system where a corrupt leader pretends to abide by those laws and one in which they no longer feel they have to. Big difference. As accelerationists, don't we want Boasberg to go all in? Well, accelerationism as like it's a little more complicated than that. I think that you could make a fair argument for either case. Right now, it seems like Boasberg is not backing off. So, we'll see how things go. You don't want to accelerate into a wall, after all. It's quite scary. These are the two cases to follow right now, because these are the two cases that right now the DOJ is responding to that are the closest to leading to that kind of crisis. Little video snippet. That's kind of a creepy photo. Boasberg does look kind of creepy in general, though.
All right, we turn now to the Trump administration standoff with a federal judge. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg now saying that the government appears to have acted in bad faith. This comes after the hearing wrapped just